I could hear whispers, low, quiet voices coming from the doorway. My heart pounded hard, but I didn't move. I pretended to be asleep, afraid to make a sound. Tunde was not alone. I could hear the soft footsteps of the other 3 men. They spoke in hushed tones, but their words sent chills down my spine. I think the wine is doing its work already, one whispered. Wine? I remembered the glass Tunde gave me. But I hadn't drunk it. I accidentally knocked it over, spilling every drop on the floor. Why did they think I was asleep? Why did they think I had drunk the wine? My mind raced. What were they planning? Was it something terrible? I stayed still, my body frozen but my ears sharp. The whispers grew louder. I'm going to make sure she doesn't know, Tunde said softly. I couldn't believe my ears. The man I married was part of something dark. Something I didn't understand. Fear gripped me. Should I run? Should I scream? But I stayed quiet, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. What would happen next? I felt trapped, alone, and scared even though Tunde was right there in the room. I wished I could wake up from this nightmare. I felt movement around me, and then the bed dipped slightly, like someone sat beside me. I opened my eyes, just a little, and what I saw made my whole body turn cold. Tunde, and 3 other men. His brothers. They were standing close to the bed, faces tense, like they were preparing to do something horrible. And then it hit me, they think I'm asleep. One of them leaned closer. Why isn't she asleep? He whispered, his voice sharp with fear. Tunde looked at the empty wine cup by the bedside. His face changed. She didn't drink it, he muttered, more to himself than to them. My heart pounded so loudly and I know they could hear it. I sat up slowly, my breath shaky. Tunde, what's going on? All 4 of them jumped back as if burned. The room went still. No one spoke. They just stared at me like I was a ghost. Tunde stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. Calm down, please. I can explain. I shook my head. Explain what? Why are your brothers in our room? Why were they standing over me like that? His brothers looked at each other nervously. One of them whispered, we should go. Tunde nodded, and the 3 men quickly left the room. He turned back to me, looking tired and afraid. This isn't how I wanted it to happen, he said softly. You were never supposed to wake up. I stared at him, completely lost. What do you mean? Tunde sat on the edge of the bed, his hands shaking. I stood a few steps away, my back pressed to the wall. My skin felt cold, my heart even colder. I didn't want to do this, he began, not meeting my eyes. But I had no choice. I said nothing. I just stared. He took a deep breath. Many years ago, one of our ancestors had 2 wives. The second wife was once a slave before he married her. The first wife's children were older, stronger. They never accepted the children of the second wife. They treated them badly, very badly. I frowned. I didn't understand what this had to do with me. One day, the son of the second wife grew up and got married. On his wedding night, his half-brothers came into the room. They did something terrible to his bride. My stomach twisted. I didn't want to hear more. Tunde continued, voice cracking. When the man found out what happened, he cursed the entire bloodline. He said that any male in the family who got married, his brothers must do the same to his wife within 21 days. Or else, disaster would strike the family. I felt like the floor under me was shaking. My breath caught in my throat. And you believe this? I whispered. You were really going to let them do that to me? Tunde looked up at me with eyes full of fear and shame. I didn't want to lose you. If I had told you before, you'd never have married me. But now we're running out of time. I took a step back. No, I said, my voice low and broken. You're the one who's out of time. You lied to me. You tricked me. You don't love me, I said, my voice shaking. Tunde stood there, silent. His eyes dropped to the floor. He didn't even try to deny it. That silence was louder than any scream. I took a step closer, rage rising in my chest. You would have let them touch me? Like I was some object. Some Sacrifice for your cursed family. His mouth opened, but the words stumbled out, weak and desperate. If we don't do this, the curse will destroy us. My brother's wife, the one who refused, she died in a fire. Another lost his baby a week later. It's real, it's happening. I'm scared too. I stared at him, frozen. Was he even hearing himself? Scared? I said, laughing bitterly. You think you're scared? I slept beside you, trusted you, and this whole time, you were planning to let your brothers. My words caught in my throat. I couldn't say it out loud. I couldn't breathe. I was trying to protect you, he whispered. By drugging me? I snapped. You don't protect someone by hurting them. I couldn't stay. I couldn't think. I needed space, air, anything. I grabbed my wrapper and stumbled out of the room barefoot, the cold tiles biting at my feet. I didn't know where I was going. It was the middle of the night. The whole house felt dark and unfamiliar. But one thing was clear, I couldn't stay in that room. Not with Tunde. Not after this. I tried to leave that night, to run, to get away, but the gates were locked. Tunde said it was for my safety. I didn't believe him. I still don't. Now, I walk through this fancy house like a ghost. Every door feels closed to me. Every whisper makes me feel like someone is watching me. I haven't seen the outside world in days. Tunde barely speaks to me. He brings food and leaves quickly. He doesn't sleep in the same room anymore. The man I once loved now looks at me like a stranger, like I'm the problem for not going along with his sick plan. And his brothers. I can feel their eyes on me when they think I'm not looking. They don't say much, just quick nods and long stares that make my skin crawl. I sleep with one eye open. I keep asking myself, was any of it ever real? The smiles, the promises, the wedding, was it all just a trap? I try to stay strong. But each day gets harder. The silence is loud. The walls are closing in. My heart races with fear. My mind spins with questions. What if they try again? What if I never leave this house? And worse, what if no one ever knows what happened to me? I am a prisoner. And no one is coming to save me. I sit on the edge of the bed, holding our wedding photo in my hands. My fingers shake as I trace the smiling faces. His arm wrapped around me, his smile warm, his eyes soft. But now, I don't recognize him anymore. Where did that sweet man go? The one who whispered promises and made me laugh until my sides hurt. The one who looked at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. Was it all a lie? I try to remember the good times. Our long walks, the way he held my hand, how he listened when I talked about my dreams. It felt so real back then. But now, I wonder if he was just playing a role, waiting for the wedding night. I think back to little moments, warning signs I ignored. The questions he avoided. The times he changed the subject whenever I asked about his family. How I never got to know his brothers until the wedding. How he rushed the ceremony. Maybe I didn't want to see the truth. Lately, sleep has become a stranger. And when I do fall into short bursts of rest, I see things. Dark rooms and eyes watching me from the shadows. In one dream, I see myself walking through the hallway in a white wedding gown, only to see 4 dark figures waiting for me at the end. I scream, but no sound comes out. I woke up with tears on my face. Is it fear messing with me? Or is this part of the curse? I don't know what's real anymore. And the scariest part is, I don't know who I married. I crossed off the 14th day on the calendar with a red pen, my hand shaking slightly as I did. Only 7 days left. And Tunde came to beg me once again. He stepped inside the room quietly, like someone carrying a secret too heavy to speak out loud. His eyes looked tired, darker than I'd ever seen them. We're running out of time, he said. His voice was dry, almost breaking. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, arms crossed, heart pounding. I don't want to lose you, he whispered, but if we don't do it, if they don't do it, the curse will come. My brother almost lost his life because his wife refused. Another cousin, he lost his job, his home. It's real. You mean to tell me, I snapped, that the only way to stay safe is to let your brothers violate me? He winced at the word but didn't deny it. "You should have told me before we got married," I said. "You tricked me." He didn't argue. He just looked at me like a man sinking into quicksand, hoping I'd reach out and pull him free. That night, I had another dream. This time, I was in my wedding dress again, walking through a long hallway filled with whispers. Hands reached from the walls. Cold, invisible hands. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I woke up drenched in sweat, gasping. My head told me it was fear. But something deeper inside whispered, "What if it's more? What if the curse is real?" Still, I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't giving in. Not now. Not ever. My hands were trembling as I stared at the phone in my hand. After days of hiding my fear and confusion, I finally made the decision. I dialed my sister's number, the one person I had always trusted the most. She was my closest sibling, the one I looked up to whenever I needed advice or comfort. I didn't know if she would believe me, but I had to tell her everything. When she answered, her warm voice on the other end gave me a little bit of courage. I took a deep breath and began, speaking slowly at first, then more quickly as the words tumbled out of me like a dam breaking. I told her about the night I woke up and heard whispers in the dark. How I thought I was alone with Tunde, my husband, but then I realized his brothers were there too. I told her about the wine I never drank because I had accidentally knocked it over, how that small accident saved me from what they had planned. Then, I explained the terrible story Tunde had told me, the family curse. How many years ago, one of their ancestors had 2 wives, and the younger wife, once a slave, had suffered horribly. How the children of the first wife mistreated the younger wife's children. I told her about the night the curse was born, how a half-brother and his siblings took cruel revenge on the younger wife's child's wife on her wedding night. Since then, the curse forced every male in the family to repeat that dark act within 21 days of marriage, or face a disaster that would destroy their family. I confessed how much I felt betrayed. How Tunde never told me this before we married because he thought I would never agree to be part of such a terrible tradition. How I felt trapped and scared, how the house, once a place of love, now felt like a prison with cold walls and silent halls. My sister listened quietly. Her silence was comforting, like a soft hand on my shoulder, telling me it was okay to be afraid but not to give up. Then she spoke, gently but firmly. She told me that I was stronger than I knew, that I didn't have to accept the curse or the cruelty that came with it. She said I deserved better than fear and lies. She promised to help me think of a way out. Hearing her words planted a small seed of hope deep inside me, a hope I hadn't felt in weeks. For the first time, I dared to imagine a life beyond this nightmare. I knew the clock was ticking, the 21 days closing in fast, but now I know what to do. The following day before dawn, while the house was still wrapped in silence and sleep, I quietly slipped out the door. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might wake someone, but the stillness held. Every step I took away from that place felt like breaking chains I never knew bound me. I didn't look back. On the bed, I left a note for Tunde. My hand shook as I wrote the words I needed him to read. "I loved you. But I love myself more." Those words were both a goodbye and a declaration, a promise to myself that I would never let fear or tradition destroy my spirit. I didn't know what the future held. Maybe loneliness, maybe struggle in finding real love. But I knew one thing: I was no longer a prisoner of a curse or a secret I didn't agree to. I was free. The curse that haunted my marriage no longer controls me. The lies, the fear, the darkness, they all stayed behind in that house, locked away like a nightmare I finally woke up from. I am still healing. Some days are harder than others. But every morning, I remind myself that I deserve kindness, truth, and a love that does not come with secrets or pain. My story isn't over. I carry the past with me, but I will not let it define my future.